Well, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Jeremy Leffler and I work in the policy office at the National Science Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today to our final week of the NSF Virtual Grants Conference. Before we get started, we'd like to take a quick poll to find out a little bit more about you. If you're using Zoom from a desktop browser, you may not be able to access the poll, and for best results, please be sure you're viewing the presentation from the Zoom application. If you attended our first week of the conference, you know that this virtual conference is taking place over 2 weeks with 2 sessions per day, and the content is similar to what it would be for an in-person grants conference. All of the sessions have been pre-recorded. However, we will be taking live Q&A. For information about the sessions, presentations, and our speakers, please visit the conference website. If you have questions, please submit them using the Q&A function in Zoom. We are encouraging attendees to upvote questions. And to do that, navigate to the Q&A function and click on the thumbs up button. And this will bring the most popular questions to the top of the Q&A window. We are answering your questions as they come in and will continue to answer questions live at the conclusion of the presentation. Please do keep in mind that we have a very large audience for this session, so we in all likelihood will not be able to get to all of your questions. However, during this presentation, I'll be joined by my colleague Samantha Hunter, a senior policy specialist in the policy office, and we'll answer a number of your questions in the Q&A during the presentation. Also, this session is being recorded and it will be made available on our website, nsfpolicyoutreach.com, in the coming weeks. And we'll send an email announcement as soon as those sessions have been posted. If you have any technical difficulties during this presentation, please use the Q&A and someone will be happy to assist you. Thank you for participating in our poll. We're happy and excited that you can join us as this marks NSF's first ever virtual grants conference. I also want to remind you to please be on the lookout for survey emails so that you can provide feedback to us on how this has been going. We hope that you'll enjoy the conference and all of the sessions that you've chosen to attend. And I'm now pleased to present the Proposal and Award Policy Update. And this session will be covered by Jean Feldman, who is head of the policy office at NSF.
It's my pleasure to present the Proposal and Award Policy Update session at the Fall 2020 Virtual Grants Conference. Next slide, please. My name is Jean Feldman. I'm head of the policy office in the Division of Institution and Award Support in the Office of Budget, Finance, and Award Management. Next slide. I'm going to present a variety of topics today that are very timely and will hopefully be useful to you in terms of your interactions with the National Science Foundation. I'm going to cover a bit about the biographical sketch and current and pending support. These are changes that we implemented in the 2020 version of the PAP Guide. I'm also going to talk about some improvements to Science CV. That is one of the vehicles that can be used to prepare and submit your biographical sketch and current and pending support information. I'm going to talk about a new term and condition that was just issued and became effective on October 5th on post-award disclosure. Something obviously very timely. I'm going to talk about the COVID-19 flexibilities, as well as changes that NSF recently implemented to our Research Performance Progress Report, or the RPPR. I'm going to talk about the 2021 PAP Guide implementation cycle, as well as NSF's implementation of the revised 2 CFR 200, and then finally some updates on research.gov. Next slide, please. Implementation of changes to the biographical sketch. Well, it's important to start out with is how NSF uses this information. NSF uses the biographical sketch so that reviewers can assess whether the individual or the team has the necessary qualifications to carry out the research as proposed. NSF has always required that you identify your appointments, but in the 2020 version of the PAP Guide, we wanted to ensure that we were very clear about the fact that senior personnel must list all of the individual's academic, professional, or institutional appointments beginning with the current appointment. We have clarified that with regard to professional appointments, senior personnel must list all current, domestic, or foreign professional appointments that are outside of the individual's academic, professional, or institutional appointments at their organization. Many felt before this clarification that if there were no actual funds provided along with that appointment, that you didn't have to identify that on your biographical sketch. So we've clarified it to specify that we want all of those appointments identified. The PAP guide requires that publication citations include full citation information, including, where applicable and practicable, the names of all authors. This was providing some challenges given the fact that there are on many publications a large number of authors. We have clarified that to indicate that senior personnel that wish to include publications in the product section that include multiple authors may, at their discretion, choose to list one or more of the authors and then et al. In lieu of including the complete listing of authors. I'm going to show you in a few slides just how that will work if you are using Science CV to prepare your biographical sketch. Next slide, please. Implementation of changes to current and pending support. This has been probably one of the most significant areas of confusion, and that's why we're focusing a bit of time on what NSF's expectations are with regard to how you prepare current and pending support. So again, let's start with how we use this information. Whereas the biographical sketch helps assess the capability of the individual or team, current and pending support is different. It's used to assess the capacity of an individual to carry out their role in the project. NSF also uses this information to help assess overlap or duplication with other projects. We have a significant set of FAQs that we've continued to enhance over time on this topic on the Policy Office site. I would strongly encourage you to review those prior to preparing your current and pending support. NSF made clarifications to this section in the PAP guide in the 2020 version, and we refer to this change as a clarification, because we have requested quite literally for decades that you identify all of the current and pending support information that you receive. But clearly, individuals were not providing all of this to us. So we are clarifying once again that it is all current and pending support, irrespective of whether that support is provided through the proposing organization or directly to the individual. We also have clarified that we also want to have an understanding of the in-kind contributions that you are receiving. And again, that is vital information to the foundation. I'm going to now cover more on current and pending support, as well as a number of the frequently asked questions that we are receiving. Next slide, please. So let's go into some of these issues that we want to devote a bit more time. In-kind contributions that are intended for use on the project or proposal being proposed to NSF must be included as part of the facilities, equipment, and other resources section of the proposal. This is truly vital information for us, and it was at the recommendation of the community that we find a better way to identify in-kind contributions that are intended for use on the project. And thank you for your suggestions in that area. One of the most important bullets in this entire presentation is the second bullet, and that's that information contained in current and pending support is separate and distinct from the information provided in the budget. Person month information included in current and pending support may differ from the person months requested on the budget for a given project. We daily continue to receive questions about this. The question will go something like, I didn't ask for any time on the budget, therefore I don't know what I'm supposed to put on current and pending support. Again, this is separate and distinct from what you put on the budget to what you put on current and pending support. So for example, if you're not requesting salary, then no person months would be shown on the budget. However, if you would be expending effort on a project, a number greater than 0, and we believe that's often the case, that's what should be entered in current and pending support. If the individual is not requesting salary and will not be expending any effort, then the project should not be reported in current and pending support. In-kind contributions that are not intended for use on the project and have no associated time commitment should not be reported in current and pending support. And that's very important information for you to understand. Next slide, please. Additional questions that we're receiving a lot about are about mentoring activities. Mentoring activities that take place as part of an individual's regular appointment at the proposing organization do not need to be included as part of their current and pending support. However, if an individual received in-kind support either directly or through their organization from an external support source to support mentoring of undergrad or grad students, that in-kind support, including the time associated with that mentoring, should be identified in the current and pending support section. Consulting or professional service arrangements. This is also a vitally important topic that we continue to receive questions about. And let me also emphasize that this is an area where you may be used to receiving support from other agencies, and NSF's answer here, it may be distinctly different than what you find from other agencies, for example, NIH, on this same topic. Consulting or professional service arrangements, as defined in 2 CFR 200-549, are not identified as an example of source of support in the PAP guide that must be reported. The reason why? The type of work that is conducted under these consulting arrangements or professional service arrangements are typically not considered to be at the same level as a project or a proposal or in-kind contribution where the individual is serving as a PI, co-PI, or senior personnel on the project. Next slide, please. We have, as I've tried to mention before, a large amount that we continue to enhance of FAQs on the biographical sketch and current and pending support. We have recently had FAQs that have focused on the following topics: the difference between what is included on the budget and how to report effort on current and pending support, something that I just covered. How to report in-kind contributions without an associated time commitment. The use of et al. In the biographical sketch. Again, I spoke to you on how you can include in the product section one or more authors and then et al. In lieu of the complete listing of author names. I'm going to show you how this works in Science CV in a moment. Whether outside consulting activities must be reported in current and pending support. And finally, whether it's allowable to delete blank pages from the current and pending support fillable format. If you're using the NSF fillable format instead of Science CV, NSF provides 15 pages in the PDF. At the moment, you can't delete the blank pages, as this can have implications for our compliant checking rules. However, you can use Science CV, which allows you to enter only the number of projects or in-kind contributions that you need, and it doesn't include any of those blank pages. We realize that this may be a problem for projects with many senior personnel, and we are actively working to identify a solution. We have a link to those FAQs on this slide, and we are encouraging you to continue to submit any questions that you don't find in these FAQs to policy@nsf.gov. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk about the Science CV changes to the NSF-approved biographical sketch and the long author list issue. The PAP Guide requires that publication citations include full citation information, as I've mentioned before, including where applicable and practical, the names of all authors. Senior personnel that wish to include publications in the product section may at their discretion choose to list one or more and then ital. I keep emphasizing this because it has been such an important issue with the community. When a citation with a long author list is imported into Science CV from ORCID, on this slide you see that it's going to have that very, very long listing. What we have now worked out with Science CV is a new way to edit this listing. So at the bottom of this list, you will see that there is you will see that there is a new edit authors. That will allow you to click on the link so that you can edit the author list and a pop-out box will appear. Next slide. On this screen, then, you will see that the user can then edit the author list in that editable text box, and the list is saving it as a text screen. Next slide, please. You're going to see now how the full citation is in the original collection, and then what will actually appear here is the edited list where you can remove what names you would like, and that is how it will appear in the truncated citation in the edited tab. Next slide, please. This Science CV change is a vital one because now it allows all citations to be selected, edited, and stored within Science CV. Your original citation list remains intact. There is nothing changed in ORCID. It eliminates the authors manually duplicating citations, and it eliminates the collection duplication. And most importantly, it allows users to help meet that 2-page limitation. And that is what is actually imported in and shown. NSF, however, will receive the full author list citation as part of the metadata that's included with the PDF. Next slide, please. I'm going to change gears here and talk about a new, or relatively new, just went into effect on October 5th, post-award disclosure term and condition. When we implemented the PAP Guide, NSF clarified that as part of the current and pending support, all meant all current and pending support, not just what comes through your institution, but also what comes directly to you. The community expressed to us that what they really meant was all of the funding projects on proposals that came in for that particular individual through the institution. And they were very concerned that what was being provided may not have captured everything that went directly to the individual. And so in the 2020 PAP Guide, we clarified this issue, as I've already mentioned. And we found that this disconnect is an extremely important one. We were receiving questions from institutions where they wanted to know that now that they've identified some support for an individual that they should have provided to NSF as part of the proposal, but it wasn't, what should they do now? NSF found itself in a situation where we knew that there may be information that should have been disclosed by an individual as part of the current and pending support for that proposal, but they didn't. So we worked with the community and we worked with our colleagues in the Federal Demonstration Partnership to develop this new term and condition on post-award disclosure of current support and in-kind contribution information. If an individual does discover that a PI or a co-PI, and again, this term and condition only applies to PIs and co-PIs. If you discover that the PI or co-PI on an active NSF award did not disclose current support or in-kind contribution information as part of the proposal, they have to submit this information to us within 30 days of its identification. Previously, we didn't have a way to provide this information to NSF. So what we did was we made use of an existing other request in the notification and request module in research.gov for this purpose. Next slide, please. The authorized organizational representative must identify the following information. And this is precisely the kind of information that we need from you to assess this information now that it is in a post-award situation. Well, now many of you much of this information may be very familiar to you because most of the information on this list comes directly from the PAP guide, because it's what should have been provided as part of the proposal submission. So the AOR will need to provide the PI or co-PI by name, the title, the award number, source of support, primary place of performance, and start and end date and award amount. The term and condition does outline what is to be provided that is in addition to what's in the PAP guide. And that's a brief description and the major goals of the project, a description of any overlap or duplication of the project with the NSF award, and an assessment of the impact of the ability of the PI or co-PI to carry out the award. NSF believes that these are decisions that should have been made by the institution at the time the proposal was submitted. NSF then has a process in place to assess the information and determine next steps. And these are clearly handled on a case-by-case basis to determine overlap, duplication, and the impact on the capacity of the individual to carry out this research. Next slide, please. One of the things that was also identified to us when we were developing this term and condition from the community, however, that the post-award disclosure of in-kind contribution information may be different. And so this slide indicates what is to be provided in the case of post-award disclosure of in-kind contributions. So as part of the term and condition, we specify that if the individual failed to disclose, this is the information we provide. Again, PI, co-PI name, source of support, primary place of performance, the summary of what that in-kind contribution was, and those three same additional bullet points where the individual institution has to make assessments to NSF on the overlap or duplication, the impact of the ability of the PI or co-PI to carry out the NSF award. They would then provide the person months or partial person months that would be committed to that project. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to totally change gears here and talk about something that is obviously currently on all of our minds, and that's COVID-19. NSF fully recognizes that we are facing unprecedented times during the pandemic. And we had worked and followed very closely all of the guidance that was provided by the Office of Management and Budget on the flexibilities that we were able to grant proposers and recipients during COVID-19. However, with the exception of an extension of single audit submissions, all of the OMB memoranda related to the administrative relief have been rescinded or have expired. But NSF wants to remind you that we continue to be flexible and supportive through use of what existing flexibilities already exist in our current award terms and conditions. These are things like initiation of a single one-time no-cost extension of the period of performance by up to 12 months. Evaluating the need for continued flexibilities on an award-by-award basis for certain types of awards. Carry forward and unobligated balances to future periods of performance and rebudgeting of funds in accordance with the terms and conditions. And we believe that there's a lot of flexibility built within those terms and conditions that may be of great assistance to you during these times. Finally, NSF may also evaluate the awardee's ability to resume the project activity in the future and the appropriateness of supplemental funding requests. So again, our thoughts are with you during these very challenging times, and faculty that are having issues that they really are like, I'm looking at the flexibilities and I still need assistance, are strongly encouraged to contact their cognizant program officer. Next slide, please. I'm also going to talk now a bit about something that we also recently just issued on October 5th, 2020, which were changes to the Research Performance Progress Report. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with what this term means, the RPPR is a uniform format for reporting progress on federally funded research. And we have long used the RPPR for the preparation and submission of annual and final project reports in research.gov. As I just mentioned, we implemented a revised RPPR format that came from the National Science and Technology Council some time ago, and we have been using that format and assessing what changes that we could make when we did implement it to reduce the administrative burden for researchers. So let me talk about that a bit more in the next slide. So what are these new requirements in our annual and final project reports that we just implemented? PIs and co-PIs must now, and this is definitely the biggest change, notify NSF when active other support has changed since the award was made or since the last reporting period. They must include a revised, current and pending support document as part of this notification. This is different than the post-award disclosure information that I was just talking about earlier. This information should only be reported if there's been a change since the award was made or since the last annual report, and it is only due at the time the report is due. Research.gov is checking to ensure that the current and pending support document is one of the two NSF-approved formats. There are a few additional questions on percentage of the award's budget that was spent in a foreign country, if there has been a change in the primary performance site location, and space to provide details about the impact on teaching and educational experience. The RPPR instruction for the question on the percentage of the award's budget that was spent in a foreign country is as follows. Describe what percentage of the award's budget was spent in the foreign country for this reporting period. If more than one foreign country was involved, identify the distribution of funding between the foreign countries. U.S.-based recipients should also provide the percentage of the budget spent in the foreign country and or, if applicable, the percentage of the budget obligated to foreign entities as first-tier subawards. There are standardized instructions that we have developed for most of the questions, and where necessary, there are NSF-specific instructions. Many of these have been either clarified or fine-tuned throughout the format. We also look to see where we could consolidate questions and make the process less burdensome for our investigators. Next slide, please. This is a screenshot from the new format about adding current and pending support to a project report. Again, as I mentioned, this is the biggest change. There is a box that will specifically ask you, has there been a change to the active other support since the last reporting period? If you check the box yes, you will be required to upload your most current, up-to-date, current and pending support document. And the current and pending support document must then be submitted in an approved NSF format. Again, our system checks to make sure that it is in one of those approved formats. Next slide. The project reporting system in Fastlane includes a lot of inline text help for completing the RPPR, including NSF-specific instructions. In this instance, the NSF-specific text for including other active support states, in the Year 1 annual report, has there been a change in current other support since the award was made? For subsequent annual reports, has there been a change in current other support since the last reporting period? We believe that these NSF-specific instructions will give you a better sense of what NSF's intention is regarding specific information that is required as part of the annual and final report. Next slide. Now I'm going to change gears here and talk about the 2021 Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide and the associated implementation schedule. Many of you are familiar with long-term process whereby we post a document in the spring, we get comments, we resolve those comments, and we post the final version of the PAP guide in the fall with an effective date in January of that following year. For 2021, the schedule will be changed. It will be a dramatically new schedule. We are now currently working on the PAP guide for 2021. We will be posting in the fall-winter timeframe a 2021 draft PAP guide for public comment. We will ask and provide 60 days for you to provide those comments. And then in the spring, we will release that document, and the new effective date from now on will be in the October timeframe. And so with the 2021 PAP guide, it will be a October 2021 effective date. Next slide. The Office of Management and Budget issued revisions to administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements, and these were posted in the Federal Register on August 13th of 2020. We were required per OMB to have these in effect on November 12, 2020 for all new awards and all funding amendments on existing awards. OMB did specify, however, that there were two provisions that were effective immediately, effective August 13th, when they were published in the Federal Register. And those two sections are identified on this slide. NSF has modified our awards to ensure that we are fully compliant with these requirements. And we recently posted revised research terms and conditions and NSF agency-specific requirements, and our entire suite of NSF award terms and conditions has been updated. This is important because this revision by OMB reflects a foundational shift in the President's management agenda that sets the stage for enhanced results-oriented accountability for grants and focuses our efforts on improving stewardship and ensuring that the American people are receiving value for funds spent on grant programs. So this was a very huge lift for us to ensure that all of these terms and conditions were revised in accordance with 2 CFR 200. And we want to make sure that you are aware and take a look at those terms and conditions to see where important clarifications have been and changes have been made. With each document that we have issued, we include a summary of the changes so you are clear about what changes have been made to our documents to ensure compliance with this revised version of 2 CFR 200. Next slide, please. Now we're talking about research.gov. Last month, NSF issued Important Notice 147 to inform the community about our transitioning to the preparation and submission of proposals incrementally from FastLane to research.gov, i.e., what does that mean? Removing the FastLane option from each funding opportunity and targeting completion by 2022. It's important to note that funding opportunities will clearly specify whether submission via research.gov is available or required. Many of you have been using research.gov for some time. All payments, all project reporting, most notifications and requests, etc., have all been long migrated to research.gov. We've basically flipped how we developed FastLane on its head. With FastLane, we started with proposal preparation. With research.gov, we implemented this last to ensure that we had adequate time to develop the necessary requirements. What this important notice basically said was, it's time, folks. FastLane is built on old technology. It limited the ability for NSF to make cost-efficient system improvements and added requested features for reducing administrative burden. The user interface doesn't conform to modern industry standards, and it is difficult for new users to learn. It's challenging for the research community to prepare, submit, and manage via multiple systems, whether it's FastLane, research.gov, or grants.gov. So this important notice indicated that we will, as I mentioned, begin requiring the use of research.gov. Since July 2020, research.gov is able to support all research proposals that conform to the standard PAP guide requirements for formatting and document content. This ramp up or gradual proposal submission will minimize the burden on both the research community and NSF staff. Research.gov also has expanded compliance checking that reduces administrative burden for the research community and NSF staff, as well as minimizes the return without review of proposals, and we know that is extremely vital to all of you. Next slide. As part of Important Notice 147, it also talked about our Biological Sciences Directorate being the first to ramp up this process. So the Directorate for Biological Sciences has issued a Dear Colleague letter indicating that they have revised solicitations for its core programs that do not have deadline dates to require use of research.gov. The Bio-DCL identifies the specific solicitations. There is a 90-day cutover period from the date the new solicitation is issued to removal of the solicitation in FastLane. The solicitations were reissued, and there is a 90-day grace period before they're removed. The bio solicitations with deadlines will move to research.gov only incrementally, and other directorates and offices are following, and they will have their own custom transition plan and communications to their communities to let them know this is happening. What are some important tips for preparers in research.gov? Research.gov will be added to solicitations whenever possible as an option. NSF strongly encourages proposal submission via research.gov. Proposal information can't be transferred from Fastlane to research.gov and vice versa. What that means is you can't start in one system and say, oh, I started in Fastlane, I think I'm going to move to research.gov and vice versa. Likewise, all proposal file updates and budget revisions must be executed in the same system as the proposal was submitted. All proposals in a separately submitted collaboratives from multiple organizations must also be prepared in the same system. And finally, proposals submitted in research.gov are evaluated in the same way as proposals submitted in Fastlane and research.gov. And this migration will not affect the merit review process in any way. And that's vitally important. Next slide. Based on feedback from the community, NSF, however, has decided to remove the font type and size compliance check warning messages from research.gov beginning in late November 23rd to be precise. This brings the system behavior in line with that of Fastlane, which does not check font or font size. I do want to emphasize, however, that the system in research.gov is fully compliant with NSF requirements. However, we believe that it is vital that we move folks to research.gov, and the warnings that faculty were receiving were pushing them away from using research.gov. I remind you that warnings in research.gov do not prevent submission, while errors prevent document upload. The PAP Guide font size policy, however, remains Arial, not Arial Narrow, Courier New, or Palatino Linotype at a font size of 10 points or larger, Times New Roman at a font size of 11 points or larger, Computer Modern family of fonts at a font size of 11 points or larger. A font size of less than 10 points may be used for mathematical formulas, equations, figures, tables, or diagrams, and when used as a symbol font to insert Greek letters or special characters. Other fonts not specified above, such as Cambria Math, may be used for mathematical formulas, equations, or when inserting Greek letters or special characters. PIs are cautioned that the text must still be readable. We are making these changes at the request of the research community. And this is vitally important for you to understand that we did listen and we are trying to address this issue. We are also spending significant time exploring the font, size, and type issue for the 2021 version of the PAP Guide. So please stay tuned to see what happens as part of that activity. Next slide. We have recently issued a demo site for research.gov. Again, this is something that was strongly requested by the research community. This demo site will allow you to prepare and edit proposals before preparing proposals in research.gov. So this should help research administrators and faculty kick the tires, get used to the site before you actually prepare your proposal in research.gov. The demo site doesn't support submission of proposals, however, and won't trigger any system-generated email notifications. The organization that you are affiliated with in your NSF account profile will be incorporated when you are in the proposal preparation demo site. But the user roles that you have will not be available in the demo sites. All users who have access to the demo site will be given the role of PI and the organization National Science Foundation. This means that users from the research community will have the organizations that they are affiliated with and NSF as organizations in the demo site. The only time users will be able to view and or edit any proposals that you created in the demo site is if you add them to the proposal as a co-PI or OAU. If you don't add any users in the proposal, no one else will be able to access, view, or edit your proposal in the demo site. All compliance checks that are enabled in the actual research.gov proposal submission system will also apply to proposals in the demo site. Proposals created in the demo site will be available for 6 months, and then they will be deleted by NSF. Neither NSF nor users will be able to access deleted demo proposal data. The demo site proposals will not be available on the actual research.gov proposal submission system, and information can't be transferred between the demo site and the actual research.gov proposal submission system. This is vitally important for you to understand. This is something to help you get used to the system, help you explain to others how to use the system. And as an aside, the FastLane demo site is no longer available. It was outdated and it had not been updated since 2014. Next slide, please. We're also expanding the research.gov proposal types in the coming weeks. Currently, you could submit a research type proposal, solicitations that require a letter of intent, or preliminary proposal must still be submitted using FastLane. Beginning in late November, you will also be able to submit rapid, eager, and raise proposals in research.gov. Note that all proposal types are already listed on research.gov, but only those that are currently supported are available selection. The others are grayed out. As new proposal types are enabled, review proposers will be able to select them. The rapid, eager, and raise are currently available in FastLane, as I just mentioned, and in late November will be added to research.gov. And there will be compliance checks that are appropriate for each of those proposal types included and embedded within the system. The project description page can't exceed 5 pages for rapids. The project description page count for eagers cannot exceed 8 pages. The requested amount for a rapid proposal can exceed 200K. The requested amount for an eager cannot exceed 300K. The requested amount for a raise proposal cannot exceed 1 million. And the same for the proposal durations that we have in place. Rapid is limited to 12 months, eagers 24 months, 5 years for a raise proposal. A program officer concurrence email is required for rapid, eager, and raise. So when these are turned on in the new in research.gov in the coming weeks, these automated compliance checks will be checked. And if they are non-compliant, you will not be able to submit those proposals. Next slide, please. There's a lot of information on research.gov that is available. We have automated compliance checklists are typically updated with each annual PAP guide release. The most recent were released on October 5th and include compliance checks for use of an NSF approved format for the biographical sketch and current and pending support. FAQs organized by topic and video tutorials are available on the research.gov about proposal preparation and submission page. A help guide composed of TIFF sheets that can stand alone and be used as part of a consolidated resource is in the early stages of development. We know that the FastLane model of thousands of pages of help text is not useful, and we're currently developing something for research.gov that is much more user-friendly. And finally, there are listservs available for both NSF staff and the research community. We strongly encourage you to share these with your colleagues, as this information is tremendously useful in navigating research.gov. Next slide. Ask early, ask often. That's obviously our mantra. There are links below for NSF staff, and we strongly encourage them to use these. They are vitally important in terms of increasing your knowledge of NSF and ensuring that you understand fully NSF's expectations as you prepare and submit your proposals to NSF and you administer those wonderful awards. Thank you, and I hope you have found this information useful.
Okay, thank you very much. We have received a lot of questions, and we have a little bit of time left to answer some of them. We've been trying to answer a lot of them in the Q&A session in Zoom itself, so there are a lot of answers in there. And what I've also tried to do is that I've put this into the chat, are some links to a lot of our frequently asked questions, both to our general proposal and award frequently asked questions, but also to the frequently asked questions that we have on current and pending support, because a lot of the questions that have been coming in are really centered around current and pending support. So I would encourage you to take a look at those, because
Strongly
a lot of
the
questions will be
Thank
answered
you.
there. So Jean, we have a little bit of time for a few questions. So I want to ask at least some of the ones that have received the most upvotes from folks. A lot of people have a lot of questions about. So the first one that we have here is about, strangely enough, the two-page biosketch limitation and long work histories that PIs might have in trying to be able to fit all of their appointments and still meet the page limit. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Be happy to do that. And thank you all for joining us today for this session and for the Q&A. So let me emphasize a couple of key points here. The BioSketch format actually hasn't changed. It contains the same fundamental elements about your appointment information, although we have we've clarified the appointment a bit. But your employment history, synergistic activities, products, 2 pages has been the limitation. And that is auto compliance checked and has been auto compliance checked for many, many years. So this is a very interesting question and issue that you're raising. What I can recommend that you do, because again, the content requirements haven't really changed, especially in the history part, we would ask you, we're getting ready to post a draft PAP guide. If you believe this is an issue, this would be incredibly valuable input for you to provide back to us so that we can make sure we factor that into how we proceed with the 2022 PAP guide. I know during this session, I've referred a number of times to 2021. Well, October 1st, 21 is fiscal year 22. So for the 22 PAP guide. So again, I would encourage you to provide that feedback, that it's an extreme challenge for your investigators when we post the draft PAP guide so that we could factor that in to any future decisions.
Okay, and the next question, you touched on this a bit in the presentation when it comes to current and pending support and the difference between what is put on the budget and in the facilities, equipment, and other resources section of the proposal versus what current and pending support, the way the forms have been set up for reporting of effort. So the forms are not allowing you have to have a number greater than 0 in there. So can you talk a bit about that?
I would be delighted to, because obviously to me, this is getting to fundamentally what the purpose is, why we ask for this information, and what we use it for. Each particular part of the proposal Obviously, we think project description, that's it. But all of them ask for pieces as it relates to our merit review criteria. So what we're asking for here is to tell us what your faculty member, or have the faculty member is more appropriately filling it out, how much time are they spending on that project? It doesn't have anything to do with how much time they are requesting on the budget. Two completely different pieces of information. I regularly hear, Gene, not asking for any time on the budget. Now, the answer is going to be a little different if it's the proposal you're preparing versus something that's already been funded. But the fundamental aspect is what we're trying to get to is capacity of that individual. We need to know how much time they are going to spend on that project. And often what you're requesting is zero, but they are spending time on that project. And we have so tried to make that clear in the FAQs that the purpose is capacity and overlap duplication. That's what we're using it. That's what we're asking our reviewers to assess. That's what we're asking our program officers to assess. So there is often, it's not about committed effort. It's how much time are they going to spend on the project? Now, again, we have a number of FAQs that address this issue. And so Jeremy asked politely, I'm going to be a little more, I'm begging you to please read those FAQs because so many, and based on the questions you're asking here, I can guarantee you we're going to add more FAQs to make sure that we articulate this. There's one other point about timing or amount of time that I would like to address because there was clearly some confusion over that. And it's about if you are a PI on a subaward, what amount do you put on current and pending support? Obviously, if you're a PI of the prime organization, and yes, it means that if you have multiple investigators, they are putting the same amount. We don't split it into your amount. It's still the whole award amount. Conversely, if you're a subawardee, you're putting the amount of the subaward because it could be a very, very, very small percentage overall of what that budget is overall for that funded project.
Just following up again on the expending of effort and not requesting funds. The follow-on question that I've seen in the Q&A come out is that not cost sharing? And then on top of that, what are in terms of audits and the NSF Office of Inspector General, how are they looking at all of this?
Okay, very good question. Probably takes a real half hour to answer, but I'm going to try to summarize. Okay, voluntary committed cost sharing, as defined in 2 CFR 200, is cost sharing that is auditable. Should an award be made, that amount on line M, that is voluntary committed cost sharing. All of the rest of it that you're putting anywhere in the proposal is voluntary uncommitted cost sharing. And the rules around voluntary uncommitted cost sharing are completely different. I beg you to read the discussion of this in the PAP guide as we go into in the cost sharing section, but it is not voluntary committed. It is not financially auditable. What is on current and pending support in the same way as it would be if it was a program that required cost sharing.
Okay, we have way many more questions than we're able to answer here. Again, I would encourage folks to look at those FAQs. We'll certainly take these questions that have come and cross-check those versus our existing FAQs to see how we can enhance them if we need to.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you, Jean, for the presentation and for answering questions. And I hope that many of you will be able to attend the remaining sessions that we have today and tomorrow. And I want to thank Jean for presenting and thank all of you for attending and hope that everyone is safe and well.
Thank you all. Thanks for attending.